Good morning, everyone. So, welcoming everyone to the world of banking with the another topic: functions of Reserve Bank of India. This video is in continuation with many other previous videos in which we talked about the organization structure of banking industry in India. We discussed the scheduled and non-scheduled banks in the previous videos. We have taken care, we have seen in depth the various forms and kinds of scheduled commercial bank and scheduled cooperative banks. So we have seen the private, public, foreign banks and regional rural banks, the various forms of cooperative banks, right? The differences between the cooperative banks and the commercial banks, and we have also seen the working of the non-scheduled banks, and we have taken care along with the important examples of each types. So also we have seen the brief introduction about RBI, Reserve Bank of India, since it's the apex body which regulates the entire banking industry in India, right? So in today's video we are going to learn about the various important functions that RBI is taking care. These are also known as the central banking functions, other than the promotional and developmental functions which RBI is taking care. The major functions RBI is taking care that we are going to discuss in detail in this particular video. So we'll have just the basic introduction about RBI, then we'll be coming to our main topic today. So this is RBI, the basic introduction, that it is India's central banking institution which controls the monetary policy of the Indian rupee, or we can say that this is the apex body which regulates the entire banking industry, which controls the affairs of the banking, which issues guidelines to the various commercial banks, to the cooperative banks, from time to time, try to manage and control the monetary policy of the Indian rupee and the working of the banking structure or different types of banks. It commenced its operation on 1st April 1935 during the British rule, and with the provisions of the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934. So two important things with this line is that it is governed by the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934. It came into existence, it started commencing its operation on 1st April 1935. So just a year after it's this particular act, that is RBI Act 1934. So RBI plays very important role not only in managing and regulating the entire banking industry in India, but also the development strategy of Government of India. It is also the member of the Asian Clearing Union. So this is the introductory part, and if we talk about the general superintendents or the member of the central board of directors or the organization structure of the RBI, then it is a 21 member central board of directors are there. The very first one is the governor, followed by 4 deputy governors, in which I would like to share that maximum of 4 deputy governors can be appointed, not more than 4, right? Then we have 2 finance ministry representatives, 10 government nominated directors to represent important elements from India's economy, 4 directors to represent local boards headquartered at Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai and New Delhi, and each of these local boards consist of 5 members who represent regional interest and the interest of the cooperative and the indigenous banks. So this was all about the RBI, a basic introduction about Reserve Bank of India. Now comes to the main aspect, that is the various function, and these functions are also known as the central banking function, because RBI is the central bank India, or central bank of India, right? So it is the central controlling authority which governs the banking industry, which regulates the banking industry. So these are few functions that are also known as central banking functions that are only and only performed by the Reserve Bank of India. So we have issue of bank notes. RBI is also known as bankers bank, banks like commercial banks, scheduled banks, RRBs, regional rural banks, and so on. So it is not only bankers bank, but it is a banker to the government also, right? Government of India we are talking about. Then we have lender of the last resort. It is the authority to have the central clearance and account settlement function is also being performed by RBI. The controller of credit mechanism is being taken care by RBI. Then custodian of country's foreign currency reserve, as well as RBI is also the custodian of the cash reserves of the various commercial banks. So there are different terminologies like CRR, SLR, and all these we are going to discuss in detail. Let's take each and every function one by one in detail. So we'll start it with the first one, issue of banknotes. So one must be aware of that all the currency notes except 1 rupee notes and coins, the Reserve Bank of India has the sole right to issue these currency notes. So except 1 rupee note and coins, these are issued by Ministry of Finance. Other than these 1 rupee note and coins, they are issued by RBI. And similarly, because there are two different agencies, one is RBI for issuing the currency notes other than 1 rupee note and coins. So all the notes which are issued by RBI, Governor of RBI puts his or her signature there on these kind of currencies, these notes, whereas Finance Secretary puts his or her signature on 1 rupee note. Right, so this thing is important when we are talking about the issue of banknotes, right? So currency notes issued by reserve banks are declared unlimited legal tender throughout the currency. So if we come to the technical definition of what we mean by the legal tender or legal currency, that any currency which is issued by RBI is a legal tender, is a legal currency throughout the country, and any currency which is not issued by RBI is a fake currency, cannot be termed as a legal tender or legal currency, right? The second function talks about banker to the government. So as a banker to the government, RBI manages the banking needs of the government. Say for example, like we people have our account with private and public sector banks, and banks are managing our account. Similarly, the bank's income and expenditure receipts, or the receipts or funds and making payments on behalf of the government, all these kind of things, these accounts management is being taken care by RBI. So as a banker of the government or banker to the government, RBI manages the banking needs of the government. It has to maintain and operate the government's deposit accounts. It collects the receipts of funds and makes payments on behalf of the government. And not only it is the bankers or government's bank, but it is also representing the government of India as the member of the IMF, International Monetary Fund, and at the World Bank. Similarly, Asian Clearing Union, RBI is also representing in the Asian Clearing Union as a part of the India, right, as the government of India. So, issue of banknotes and government to bankers, the first two functions. Now, the third function, that is lender of the last resort. And what we mean by this particular function is that in case of emergencies, in case of financial difficulties, if any of the commercial bank, if any of the scheduled banks comes to seeking an emergency help from any of the institution, so the very first name is RBI. So the commercial bank approach RBI in times of emergencies to tide over financial difficulties, and RBI comes to their rescue, though it might charge a higher rate of interest. So this is, the terminologies are repo rate and reverse repo rate. So whenever banks are lending the funds to RBI, or sometimes in case of emergency, RBI is also lending funds to the commercial banks. So these different terminologies are repo rate and reverse repo rate. And at times of when RBI is coming to the rescue part, so RBI may charge on a higher rate of interest from the commercial banks. So this is one thing. Another is central clearance and account settlement. Since commercial banks have their surplus cash reserves deposited in the Reserve Bank, so it is easier to deal with each other and settle the claim of each other on the other through bookkeeping entries in the books of the Reserve Bank. Say for example, if I am having two accounts with the same bank, so if I need to transfer from one account of mine to another account, so it is not necessary that I will be withdrawing from one account and then depositing in the second account. What I can do is I can just online made an entry like online transfer. So there will be just the book entry will be there, and since every bank is maintaining their account with these RBI, all the commercial banks are maintaining their accounts with Reserve Bank. So if banks want to transfer their funds, surplus cash reserves they are having with RBI, so it is easier to deal with each other and settling the claim. And all these functions are taken care by RBI. So there is no requirement first to withdraw the amount in cash and then to deposit again and again. So what they can do, only mere bookkeeping entries can be done. The claims can be settled with the help of RBI, because every bank is maintaining their accounts with the bank, because we have already studied that RBI is bankers bank, right? RBI is bankers bank. So the clearing of accounts has now become an essential function of the Reserve Bank, taken into perspective. Since credit money forms the most important part of the supply of money, right? And since the supply of money has important implications on economic stability, the importance of control credit becomes obvious. So this particular credit control has been under the major controlling or central functions which are being performed by RBI. So credit is controlled by RBI in accordance with the economic priorities of the government. So from time to time we are seeing the increase and decrease in the rates, interest rates. So this is all done keeping in view the economic priorities of the government. So RBI time to time manages all these kind of interest, increasing the rates and decreasing the rates and modification in these kind of rates in order to control the credit supply in the market or in the countries. Again, the point is bankers bank. So we have also seen that RBI is the government's banker or banker to the government. It is not only banker to the government, or it is not only holding the government's accounts with the RBI, but it is also having the commercial banks accounts or cooperative banks accounts or RRB's account that are there with the RBI. So therefore RBI is the banker to all the banks. That is, in short, if we say that to all the commercial banks, cooperative banks and regional rural banks, RBI is having their account with RBI with itself, right? And RBI hold their cash reserves, lend them short-term funds and provide them the central clearing and remittance facilities, as the commercial banks are giving these kind of facilities and services to their retail customers and corporate clients, right? Custodian of the cash reserves of the commercial banks and custodian of the country's foreign currency reserves. So as a custodian of the cash reserves, the rate at which these reserves are maintained is known as your CRR, cash reserve ratio, and again is SLR, statutory liquidity ratios. So the commercial banks hold deposit in the Reserve Bank and later has the custody, RBI has the custody of the cash reserves of the all the commercial banks as per the required rate, that is CRR and SLR. Right. After that, it is not only maintaining the cash reserves of the commercial bank, but it is also maintaining and it is also the custodian of the country's foreign currency reserves, which means that all the foreign currency, all the country reserves of international currency is lying with RBI, and RBI is the custodian of the country reserves of international currency, and this enables the Reserve Bank to deal with crisis connected with the adverse balance of payment options or balance of payment or positions or BOP, right? Balance of payments. So adverse conditions are there, having tariff quotas applied on imports and exports, what are the current positions of international currency, the valuation and devaluation of the India's currency, that is INR. So all these positions, all these things are being managed under the leadership, under the role of the central banking functions of the RBI. This is all about the central banking functions of RBI. Hope we'll see the other promotional and developmental functions and roles and importance of banks in other video. With these words, thank you everyone. Thank you so much.